Episode 84, Odd Couple Roommates.
Roommates with opposite personalities, huh? It's a recipe for disaster. Or comedy gold. I once had a roommate who was the complete opposite of me. I'm the type of person who likes things neat and tidy, but my roommate seemed to think that their side of the room was actually a storage unit for their clothes. I'm talking about clothes everywhere, on the floor, on the bed, on the chair. It was like a fashion hurricane had hit our room. And don't even get me started on their eating habits. I'm a health nut, but my roommate had a diet that consisted solely of junk food. I'm pretty sure they thought that the 4 food groups were pizza, burgers, fries, and ice cream. I swear, if I had to see one more empty bag of chips on the floor, I was going to lose it. But despite our differences, we did have some things in common. For example, we both loved to procrastinate. In fact, we were so good at it, we could have written a book on it. If procrastination was an Olympic sport, we would have won the gold medal. And you know what they say, if you're going to do something, do it right. Or wait until the last minute and do it then. Living with a roommate with an opposite personality is like being in a never-ending game of compromise. You compromise on the temperature, the cleanliness, the noise level. Pretty much everything. But you know what they say, opposites attract, and in our case, it was like 2 magnets with the same charge. In the end, I think we both learned a lot from each other. I learned that sometimes it's okay to let loose and have fun, and my roommate learned that sometimes it's important to pick up after yourself. And if all else fails, just remember, you can always move out and find a new roommate who's more your speed. But until then, embrace the chaos and enjoy the ride. Thanks for listening, folks. So, roommates with opposite personalities. It's like a game of chance, you never know what you're going to get. It's like playing roulette with your living situation. You have the neat freaks who make you feel like you're living in a museum, and then you have the messy ones who make you feel like you're living in a landfill. It's all about finding the right balance. I once had a roommate who was a total germaphobe. She would use a different sponge for each dish and would sanitize everything that came into the apartment. I'm talking phone, keys, even the mail. But the thing is, she was also a hypochondriac. So, while she was busy cleaning everything in sight, she was also convinced that she was going to get sick from something. Then there are the roommates who are complete opposites in terms of schedules. You have the early birds who wake up at the crack of dawn and the night owls who come alive at midnight. It's like living with 2 different species. I once had a roommate who was a morning person. I'm talking up at the crack of dawn, making coffee, and singing along to the radio. Meanwhile, I was the complete opposite. I would stumble out of bed around noon and barely utter a word until I had my coffee. But despite our differences, we managed to make it work. We found ways to compromise and respect each other's space. And that's really the key to living with roommates with opposite personalities, finding a way to make it work and being willing to adapt. In the end, living with roommates with opposite personalities can be a challenge, but it can also be a lot of fun. You never know what kind of adventure you're going to have. It's like living with your very own sitcom, except you don't get paid for it. Roommates. The people we choose to live with because we can't afford to live alone, but sometimes we wish we could. And when you end up with a roommate with an opposite personality, things can get pretty interesting. I once had a roommate who was the complete opposite of me. She was a neat freak, while I was a bit of a slob. She liked to wake up early, while I preferred to sleep in. And when it came to music, we had completely different tastes. I mean, I would be jamming out to some classic rock and she would come in and be like, "Can you turn that down? I'm trying to listen to my meditation tapes." Living with someone with an opposite personality can be a bit like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We had to compromise on things like cleaning schedules and when to play music, but sometimes we just had to agree to disagree. I mean, she would rearrange the fridge every week and I would just stare at her like, why do we need to alphabetize the condiments? But you know what they say, opposites attract. And sometimes living with someone with an opposite personality can be a learning experience. I learned how to be a little bit neater and more organized, and she learned how to let loose and have a little fun. But let's be real, the best part about having a roommate with an opposite personality is the stories you can tell. Like the time she tried to teach me how to meditate and I fell asleep and started snoring, or the time I accidentally spilled red wine on her pristine white carpet. We still laugh about those moments today. So, to all the roommates out there with opposite personalities, embrace the differences, learn from each other, and don't forget to find the humor in the situation. And if all else fails, just remember, At least you're not living with your parents.
And that wraps up another laughter-filled episode of Not So Funny A. If you enjoyed the jokes generated by our AI algorithms, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our comedy-loving community.